Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. The world needs to hear your message and your story, so don't deny the world of that gift within you that the universe has given you. Someone out there needs to hear your story because it will support them in feeling hope, inspired, and even transformed. Do you want to discover how I help get my clients out of their own way, show up, and confidently share their message? I would love to extend an invitation to you to join me in my free masterclass, Start Your Own Podcast from Idea to Implementation, on Wednesday, April 5th at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can find the registry link in the show notes. Hope to see you there. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest is Michelle Jewsbury. She is the founder of Unsilenced Voices, a coach, a speaker, and a powerhouse advocate for those who have experienced pain and trauma. Michelle, welcome. It is such an honor to have you here. I am so excited to jump in and share and learn all about your story, your journey, and the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you're doing. Thank you for taking and making the time to be with me today. How are you?
Brad, thank you. I'm doing really well. It feels like we've been trying to get on a podcast together for months. So I'm really happy that it finally started to happen.
Yes, I am honored to have you here and so excited to jump right in. It has been a while. So with that being said, let's jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about what Unsilenced Voices is all about and when you founded it?
Yeah, that sounds great. So a brief history of who I am real fast before jumping into there so you know why I started the organization. I grew up in a small town. My mom and dad were the love story of the town. So I've always wanted that love story and a relationship. And I ended up moving to Hollywood, California to pursue an acting career when I was 20 years old. And while I was there, I ended up meeting somebody who I thought was going to be my Prince Charming. And lo and behold, it turned out to be a very violent relationship. So I ended up staying with him for about 4 years. And then escaping and documenting my story. And with my theater arts background, I ended up writing and performing a 65-minute solo play about my experience in domestic violence. I performed that in 2016. And that's when people started coming up to me, telling me their stories. That's when I realized that I wasn't alone, that other people have experienced similar traumas. And that's when I felt called to do more. So 2017, I founded Unsilenced Voices. We began in West Africa. So I've always had a heart for Africa. Never really knew why, just God gave me that. We started in Ghana, expanding to Sierra Leone, then Rwanda. In 2022, we gifted over $33,000 to USA survivors, relocation, housing, and childcare needs. The bulk of our programming really does still happen in Sierra Leone. We just built a cassava processing facility with the TV show The Fixers. So filmed that. Wow. 2023. And that is season 4, episode 2. You can find that on BYU. And we have about 1,400 people between 2 villages. We work in the brothels. We have vocational training centers that we've partnered with that we put our girls through. We pay for stipends and medical counseling, you name it. So there's a lot that we do, but I love it, right? We give back. We actually just had a fundraiser. I know this is very evergreen, but at the beginning of 2024, we had a fundraiser and I didn't have to put the fundraiser on. Somebody else put the fundraiser on for us.
Amazing.
1,000. So it was really great.
That is incredible. And the fact that you started in Africa, I mean, as you said, your heart just called you there. But I mean, this problem is not geographic. It happens all over the world. So the fact that you chose Africa, that's very interesting. And just the fact that you're doing all this work to give back and help, it is so important. And I love it. I think it's absolutely incredible. You are a true inspiration, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you. Social currency is the future. And social impact is that currency. So I feel like everybody has a calling to do something. Yeah. And I don't care if it's with abuse or with animals or climate change or our oceans, just taking a step forward and doing something with the calling that God's given you. So speaking up, writing something, just being an advocate, volunteering, helping nonprofits, starting your own nonprofit. it's extremely important to be able to give back. So it's not about me, and I do appreciate the accolades. Thank you so much. But it really is about how many voices we can unsilence so we can stop the epidemic.
Yeah, I think, as you said, we are all here with a gift. Every single person on this planet has a gift or multiple gifts. And I really believe that it is our duty and our responsibility to share those gifts with the world. As you said, and I agree, the gifts are not for us. It has nothing to do with us whatsoever. The gifts are for those around us, those who we surround ourselves with, those out there in the world that need that gift, because there are people out there that need it. And it's our duty to share it with the world. So you are doing exactly that. You are modeling that for people. So I think it's incredible.
Thanks, Brad. And I run a for-profit as well. And in the for-profit, we help people understand that they not only can tell their stories, but they can monetize their stories. They can start businesses and nonprofit organizations. And this is how we create that domino effect of change. So through Unsilenced Voices, yes, but also through the LLC that is created, we're really giving people more voice, giving people the ability to speak up and speak out.
Well, so many people are silenced, and we do. We all have a voice within us, too, that needs to be heard, and we do all have a story as well that needs to be shared, because undoubtedly, your story will impact at least one person, and that's the goal. If you can impact one person's life with your story, that's your job done. I mean, of course, we want to reach as many people as we possibly can, but if you can cause an impact on one person with your story, how incredible is that?
Yep. It's super awesome.
I would love for you. Now, I know because you and I met in October in Vegas, and I've heard your story, the bit that you shared at that conference. I would love for you to share a little bit more. I know you briefly went through it, but would you mind sharing a little bit more about your story and how that impacted you you mentioned that it, of course, inspired creating and starting Unsilenced Voices. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So growing up, of course, there was trauma, right? Every household is not perfect. My parents did the best that they could. But growing up, I felt small little bits of neglect. And that neglect then transpired into me gravitating towards somebody who didn't treat me right. Somebody who I thought I was going to get that love from. But unfortunately, it turned out to be violent. So it was physical, emotional, sexual, and financial abuse. And I remember the first time my head went through the wall, it was about 4 months into the relationship. And I remember stepping forward and looking behind me at the hole and just thinking to myself, I need to patch this, not that I need to run away.
Wow.
That didn't even cross my mind. And I ended up staying with him for 4 years. And during those 4 years, experienced beatings lasting longer than 4 hours, financial abuse. It was really bad. And I am very fortunate that I have my life. And what's interesting is I have learned forgiveness because I know this is very cliche to say this, but hurt people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, generational cycles of trauma continue until somebody says stop and no more. So I realized he was hurting me because of experiences that he had when he was younger. Now, of course, during the abuse, I didn't understand that. It took me years afterwards to really reconcile that. But when I escaped, I didn't know that I was going to be starting a nonprofit. Didn't know I was going to be an international speaker or coach. That wasn't my goal. I remember my first acting class that I went into specifically for solo theater. And I ended up going in, crossing my arms and putting my legs up. And why am I here? I was very hesitant. And my friends encouraged me to go. That's why I went. But once I started to tell this story, then I was like, oh, all right, I guess this will make great entertainment for one. And then once I did the play, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is not just me. This happens so often. 1 in 4 women worldwide. We're not even talking about the sexual abuse that little boys experience. Numbers are staggering from 1 to 4, 1 to 7 or 8. There's no actual statistic because a lot of men aren't speaking up. And just from there, it just kind of transpired. I was a bartender at the time, and I remember pouring Jack and Cokes and being like, hey, I think I need to start a nonprofit. What do you guys think? While they're sipping on their cocktail. And they're like, oh, that sounds great, Michelle. We love you. We support you. it was a dive bar and I was well known. I was a good bartender, but people were like, yeah, why not? So I created the nonprofit out of the bar. And
holy shit.
It's so crazy to me looking back, because I remember throwing ideas. What about this name or that name? And there were some bar regulars that would often come in and drink and have their good old time, but they would converse with me. And that was my mastermind at the time.
That's so funny.
And that bar mastermind helped me to create Unsilenced Voices. And when I first started, I had no idea what I was going to do. I mean, I did the paperwork all myself, 501c3 within a month. I'm very good at making sure all my I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And looking into how I can save money instead of having to pay somebody to do it when I need to learn it myself. And then, of course, delegate after. But we did all that. And I was like, now what? And then this Ghanaian doctor showed up and he said, go to my home country. And I know you know me somewhat, but I'm always like, sure, I'll try anything once. So I packed my bags and I flew to Ghana to stay with his family after one time of meeting this guy.
Jeez.
And that's kind of how it started. We were going to different villages, speaking to elders, speaking to young girls. And I ended up meeting the ARC Foundation, which is an amazing organization in Ghana. They need funding. So if your heart is there, the ARC Foundation. But we partnered with them for a while. And then, of course, our funding was lack. But then we ended up moving back to Sierra Leone. And I say back because in 2016, right when I was writing my play, I was volunteering with a nonprofit that worked in Sierra Leone. So I had connections there. Wow. So I ended up hiring the manager that used to work for that other nonprofit. And he is still our main manager to this day.
Wow.
And we've got 2 other supervisors. And like I said, the bulk of our programming happens in Sierra Leone because we have team members on the ground and we are giving hands-on service. So we do a lot of advocacy, education, and support services. Those support services is vocational training, the medical, the counseling, the monthly counseling with the sex workers, savings box programs in our villages. We do advocacy work. Our girls actually go out into villages and into the towns and talk about how it's not okay to beat your wife or your husband, and it's not okay to sexually assault your children, things like that. Things that us in a first world country are like, well, duh.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
That's right. Wow. What an incredible and staggering amount of work here. I think it's amazing. And the fact that it all started in a dive bar.
I know.
That's pretty incredible.
You're actually one of the first podcasts I shared that with, because I'm getting a lot more comfortable with my story. It's not just repetitive. So I'm adding things and I'm like, oh yeah, it kind of did. I was speaking at Synapse in Tampa yesterday, and I was speaking about using technology for good. And it kind of came up. Where'd you start it? Oh yeah, I was bartending. so that's how this came up now, Brad.
Incredible. That is amazing. Michelle, how have these experiences helped shape this Michelle you are now today, both personally and professionally, would you say?
I never thought that I would own my own business. I never thought that I'd really be working for myself. My mama was in the restaurant industry from before I can remember. And she taught me. She was a manager and she trained me in the restaurant industry. So I've spent 16 plus years in the restaurant industry, from back of house, front of house. I thought I was going to manage. I kind of thought maybe I could co-own with somebody and own a bar. I do really love the restaurant industry because I've spent so much time in it. But when this happened, and when all of these opportunities presented themselves, and when I started to shake hands with people, see, this is what I talked a lot about at Synapse, is that relationship capital is your best asset. And when you can meet people who can help you and assist you and who join your team and who are advocates for you, then things start to really take off. And when I first jumped in, I'm like, man, I want to do it now. But things take time.
Yeah.
And then now this is my full-time gig. You know, I get to travel the world and speak and coach and help people transform their stories into businesses and nonprofits and change people's lives just by speaking up. So if you're out there, if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, well, my story is not good enough, I can guarantee you your story is good enough, because one person can make a difference. I was able to do something by just speaking up and speaking out and building those relationships. And my life has completely shifted I mean, little more about me. In 2010, I found God high on cocaine. I was lying on my back talking to a ceiling fan, and I was a 2.5-year coke addict. I thought I was fine. I was buying a house at the time, and I was working in a restaurant, making decent money, but I was spiraling downhill. And I didn't know that at the time. So I started talking to the ceiling fan, and the ceiling fan answered. And then I ended up in my abusive relationship. And then after that, there was a lot more that happened, but we can't get into hours and hours of explanation. But that's when I felt that calling, and God helped me recover through cocaine and helped use my story. And I'm very relatable. And if I can do this, right? A bartender from a middle-class family from North Idaho that now works in Africa. If I can do this, you can do this too.
How incredible is that? And I love that you speak about the importance of connection and relationships, because I believe too that relationships and connection, they're the foundation for everything. Yeah. You cannot go anywhere without them. And it does take time to build and nurture and grow those relationships. But I believe when you get connected, it can skyrocket you to a whole other level.
Yeah. No,
it's
definitely.
so important.
I have a very good friend. His name is George Chanos. You probably know who he is. Mm-hmm. I'm at the MGM right now, and I'm having a cocktail hour with his wife later on. We've become very good friends. But George is the former Attorney General of Nevada. And when I first started hearing him and listening to him and rubbing shoulders in the same room and on the same stages, I wanted to learn more. So I gravitated towards that, and I would just sit around and always kind of be there. We developed this relationship, and he loves what I do, and he's doing his own movement called Evolution, and it's all about transformation, right? There's a lot of things happening in society these days, and we need people who have empathy, who want to give back. We need people to be able to have conversations with one another, even if we disagree. Politics needs to change. There's so many things that need to happen. But George is by far one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. And I learned a lot from him and gravitating towards him. And that's just one of the many. I mean, Lee Steinberg is another friend. Lee Steinberg, Patrick Mahomes' agent, right? He helped us fundraise $100,000 at our charity event in July of 2021. So we sat down, George and I, last time I was in Las Vegas, and Jeff Hoffman is a good friend of mine. He's the founder of Priceline. And Jeff asked me about a year ago, he said, "What makes you different, Michelle?" And man, for the whole year, I couldn't figure it out. What makes me different? Yeah, I'm a survivor, but there's a lot of survivor-led organizations. So sitting down with George, I was like, oh my gosh, relationship capital. I'm very good at shaking hands. I'm very good at meeting people and being on their team, them on our team, and just building those relationships. So that's the long-winded answer.
No, I love it because it's important. These are key elements of life and entrepreneurship. And we have to go into these relationships that we build and nurture. And even in business, you have to go into these things with the mindset of, how can I be of service to you?
Yeah.
How can I help you? It's not about you. You can't go in, well, what am I getting out of this? That's nothing to do with it. You have to go in with the mindset of, what can I do to help you? Where do you need support? What can I do to be part of this?
Yeah, my first mentor was Bill Walsh. And some people love him, some people don't. But you know what? I learned so much from Bill. And I will always attribute everything that I've learned because of that man. And at first, I was denied to get into his Platinum Speaker program. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I didn't know programs or anything like that. So he said no. And I said, you don't tell me no. So I got myself in, and I was carrying his bags. I was volunteering. I was making sure I was staying late. And that's what it takes. Whether you're building a nonprofit or a for-profit, whether you have a ministry. I spoke to a client yesterday who has a ministry. It's the same concept. It's building those relationships. And like you said, serving their need.
Yeah.
So
that's what it's all about. That's what we're here for, is to be in and of service to each other and help each other.
Yeah.
What would you say, Michelle, was the biggest or most valuable takeaway for you through your experience coming out of domestic violence?
I guess I should have read your questions. No, I'm joking. No, I like spontaneity. Biggest takeaway from leaving that abusive relationship. I started to really kind of dive into therapy and counseling. And I understood why I gravitated towards a man who treated me so poorly. And I understood that even though I was the victim in the relationship, I also had to take responsibility for my part in it. And my part was staying. My part was being that person that I thought could change him or help him. And unfortunately, you can't change anybody. People are the way that they are. And if they want help, then they need to seek it themselves. You out there listening, you can't change somebody. So remember that. And that was one of the biggest takeaways that I think I took, was I started to realize more about myself, started to understand some of my traumas, some of my downfalls, some of my positivity, some of my negativity. I just kind of dove into learning more about me. And it all transpired from this domestic violence relationship where I kind of engulfed myself in growth and therapy. However, because I did that, I then am able to help teach that and help other people go through the same thing. So there's always a positive. I always say that God is able to turn broken pieces into beautiful things. Mm-hmm. And he was able to do that with my story. He was able to do that with me in general. So that's probably what I would say.
There's always a silver lining in a situation, no matter how bad it seems at the time when you're in it. And it takes a lot of work. As you said, you had to do the inner work. You have to. But to be able to do the work, to be able to step outside of that situation, whatever it is, and look in and find and pull out that silver lining or pull out the lesson in order to move forward and help heal or do the work or whatever it is you need to do to move forward from that situation. There's a gift there always.
Yeah, there is. There definitely is. And unfortunately, a lot of people get trapped in their trauma. Our mutual friend, Tigo, amazing woman, and she's experienced trauma, and the women on her stages have experienced trauma, but they've been able to overcome that trauma, take a step out. They do something in spite of or because of. They don't let it inhibit them from growth. And that's what we need to encourage so many other people to do.
I just have to say that experience, because you and I haven't really talked since then, but that experience for me, being in that room with all of you, Michelle, I swear to you, that was one of the most transformational experiences I've ever had in my life. I left Vegas a different man than when I got there because of what I witnessed through all of you women. You're sharing your stories, opening up and speaking and sharing your voices. And I've never seen such a collection or sense of sisterhood among women. And to be right there in it was so fucking powerful. I'm telling you, it changed me as a man. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life.
That's amazing so to hear that. Well, oftentimes women are in competition with one another.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that stems from the beginning of time. We used to have to compete for men, and men would go hunting, and they always were in collaboration with one another because they had to take down a tiger or something. And women, we would fight for the man or fight for the attention. And now trying to make that shift 2,000 years after Christ, we're still in this position of, oh no, we need to fight each other. And I mean, this is on topic, but I'm just going to kind of elaborate a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
This competition mindset also is seen in nonprofit organizations. And the reason being is because they fight over funding. Now, the problem that we see is, for example, in human trafficking, because 100% of victims of human trafficking has experienced some type of domestic violence.
Yes.
Whether that is extreme trauma from their pimp, their abusers, their clientele, childhood trauma, whatever that looks like. And these traffickers work in collaboration with one another. So we're seeing this across Web3 technology. We're seeing this in Web2 technology, social media. We've been seeing this just in general, picking up a phone, right? So traffickers are able to collaborate. And this is why human trafficking is now a $300 billion a year industry, while organizations who combat human trafficking fight against funds. So then we don't get funded and we don't get to help where we need to. So, I mean, all of this kind of works in itself, just like you talking about how we worked in collaboration and Teresa Goss's event, the Now Honors Awards and the Pink event. We need more of that.
We do. Absolutely.
We need more collaboration in order to shift mindsets, to shift the reality of what is happening in society.
It's events like that do cause that shift.
Yeah.
Like I said, that was transformational for me. There was not one single bit of competition among all of you there. It was beautiful to see you all supporting each other and celebrating each other. And that's what we need to do as a society. We men need to do that as well. We need to stop all the bullshit and all the competition between masculine and feminine. There's no need for it. There's no space for it. We've got to reignite things. We have to do things differently. And Teresa's event is an example of how we do that, is more events like that, more coming together, more conversation, because I truly believe that conversation is the catalyst for change. If we don't talk about it, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
You have to talk about it.
You have to feel in order to heal, and how you feel is you express yourself. That expression can be verbally, it could be movement, it could be play therapy, art, music, it can be anything, but using your voice, ladies and gentlemen, right?
Yes.
Using your voice can make a significant difference. And I mean, you and I, we've been on stages with people who say one thing behind the curtain and another thing in front of the curtain. And it's time to stop that. It's time to be transparent and honest. Authenticity matters. So we do 4 summits a year. They're virtual summits called Breaking the Silence. We've got a book collaboration called Breaking the Silence, Voices of Survivors. But it's not just women, it's men as well. And I highly encourage more men to speak out. And we've got this gentleman. I'm super excited that he is willing to talk about this. He is scared, I'm not going to lie, that he's talking about his childhood sexual trauma. He is a heterosexual male. He's married with children. And he was viciously sexually assaulted by another man multiple times when he was young. And a lot of times men don't talk about this.
No.
We're taught to flip our collars. We're all good. Everything's fine. Expression is necessary. And that expression is going to heal so many people. So many people. So yes,
we as boys are raised to put on your big boy pants and stop crying like a girl and don't show emotions. That's girly and all. That all needs to fucking change. And it starts with teaching our children when they're young that it's okay to show your emotions. It's okay to be vulnerable. We have to have those conversations, period. With men as well, who are now out of those stages. They're not boys anymore, and they have experienced trauma. And of course, it's because of this conditioning. Men are too scared to come out and speak about these things because there's so much shame attached to it. So if we provide or we create a safe space for people to share, this is how we're going to move forward and heal, is having these conversations. We need to talk about the difficult shit that people don't want to talk about. Otherwise, we're going to stay stuck where we are.
Yeah. And otherwise, we're going to continue to spiral downhill. And the thing is, Einstein said, if you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, then it's insanity.
Yes.
So it's time 100%. To change and shift. So we're not insane any longer.
100%. I want to speak a little bit more about domestic violence, domestic abuse. How can women who are experiencing these forms of abuse reach out and ask for help? In connection with that, what can we do to pay attention as people who are on the outside to support those we suspect might be in abusive relationships? Yeah.
So the first thing is a lot of the women I talk to, and this is primarily women, so domestic violence does happen to men as well. There are less resources for men. And for the man, I'm going to just answer this one out of the beginning. Leave. I would just break free. For the women, there are shelters, there are organizations that you can reach out to. But what I would do is strategically plan an escape. See, for women who escape domestic violence relationships during that period, it's actually the most unsafe. It's more likelihood that you would be killed. And you don't want to tell other people about your plan of action, your escape. You want to talk to an organization or a shelter, or say your friend who lives 3,000 miles across the other continent. That's who you talk to when you start planning. And I remember when I was in my abusive relationship, Paul, I call my abuser, he used to keep hundreds in his pockets or 20s in his pockets and just throw his clothes. And in the morning I would clean up. Well, there was a point where I wasn't allowed to have a job. So I would take that money and hide that money. And I was strategically planning without actually understanding what I was doing. This was a subconscious thing. So I'm going to put it on the conscious level and plan that escape. So when I actually left, I was also paying double payments from his bank account to my car. So when I left, I had a whole year where I was safe. where I didn't feel like that I needed to stick around just for financial obligation. So I've spoken to many individuals and they're like, well, what do I do? You got to leave. You do.
Yeah.
If you are being hurt and it's the man or the perpetrator is not willing to take responsibility, is not willing to do the deep dive into healing themselves, it is going to continue, whether it's weekly or monthly or happens once a year. Well, that once a year strangulation could kill you.
Yeah.
And then your children could be left with no mother or father. So it's really important to start planning. There are a lot of organizations out there. And then the second part of your question
is how can we as outsiders help and support?
So say something. If you see something, say something.
Okay.
Biggest thing, right? Yeah. Use your voice. Now, am I saying you need to go and say, hey, bro, stop and cause a fight? No. But if you are friends with somebody who is being physical or even emotionally abusive towards his or her spouse or relationship, say, hey, bro, that's not cool. Why are you doing that? And then kind of dive in, because then they understand, oh, it's not cool. Oh, I just got caught doing something wrong. And it might make them second guess. But really, if you see something, say something to the authorities, call it in. If you hear domestic violence happening, and this, we've seen NCIS so many different times, or television shows talking about this. Abuse is happening in the apartment next door, and nobody, quote unquote, heard anything. But they did hear something. They just chose not to pick up the phone. Pick up the phone, call the police, do a welfare check on somebody, and just make sure that they're okay.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Now, in your opinion, other than what we've mentioned, talking about it and these things, what is the way forward through all of this? And how do we even begin to tackle an issue as prevalent and large as this and start making progress with it?
Well, it's a generational cycle. So it starts with the kids. Unfortunately, 40 to 60% of kids who experience domestic violence in the home turn out to be abusers or the abused. So if we stop that generational cycle, if we take a stand for ourselves and we break free from that abusive situation, we allow our children to break free from that generational cycle. Education is key, and education is key to sustainable change. So we have to learn what is happening, dive into your situation. If you are in a marginalized community and you are experiencing extreme poverty and you feel like there is no better option for you besides staying with this abusive dick, excuse my French.
No, it's okay.
I would highly suggest reaching out to case managers, reaching out to different organizations, doing your due diligence so you take your kids away from that situation, so you give your kids a chance after you allow yourself to break free.
Thank you for that. As mentioned off the top, you coach as well. So how long have you been working in the coaching space? And was it just a natural evolution for you to step into the coaching world as a result of you doing your advocacy work?
So I originally wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a movie star. And I moved to Hollywood, California, and then moved away and moved back, moved away and moved back. I went back for, 13 plus years back and forth. And I loved being in front of the camera. I just didn't like the business of Hollywood. There were casting couches that I refused to partake in. There were horrible producers and all kinds of things. Like I've experienced some really interesting situations, as I'm sure many people have in Hollywood. So when I went through this experience and then started Unsilenced Voices, and then of course did that play about my experience, it just was an easy progression to speaking. Did I know? Not really. So I felt a calling to go to networking events early on. This was right after I started Unsilenced Voices, go to networking events. And I was like, why? I don't want to go do that. I want to go shake hands with people. But I did. I listened. I went and I started to learn, because I'm supposed to be up there on stage. And then I knew, okay, well, I need to get trained in this, because it's not just, I'm an actress, I can be up on stage. It's completely different. Like I memorize a script and blocking and all of that with acting. With speaking, I have a couple bullet points that I make sure that I touch upon. However, there's no memorization. You read your audience. You make sure to impact them and speak into their listening. So I had to learn how to do that. And like I said, Bill Walsh was that first coach that really kind of helped me do that. And I did a lot of watching. I watched speakers. I watched people on the stage and then off the stage, behind the curtain, in front of the curtain, what they were doing, how they were interacting, leaving their mic on, just all these things. I'm like, And then when I first started doing it, it wasn't perfect at first by any means. It's still not perfect. I say my ums and my ahs, and sometimes it's not a great day, but we're human. So what I stand behind is this honesty, this transparency. So when I started coaching, this is how I teach. I say, you want to be a speaker, you want to be a coach, you want to write a book, you want to change the planet, you want to change the direction of the way things are going. It's so important to express yourself and be authentically you. So talk about the crap that you experienced, because then you're relatable. See, speakers, sometimes they're like, oh, I have to be perfect up on stage. No, there's no such thing. Jesus was perfect. That was 2,000 plus years ago, right? There's no perfection. And I think that it's important for the audience, the people, the clients that we have for coaching to realize that we're not perfect, but we are just one step ahead, so we can teach you how to do what we've done.
Love it. Life is messy. If you slip up while you're on, it's going to happen. We're human beings. We make mistakes. It's okay.
I mean, look at Jennifer Lawrence, right? Jennifer Lawrence fell while she was accepting her Oscar. And then they made a whole joke because Meryl Streep made her fall. No, she didn't. She's just being authentically her. Oh.
And that's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's what people resonate with. That's what people, as you said, it's that relatability that's so important.
Yep.
Can you share some key moments or turning points in your personal journey as a survivor of abuse that led you to become the advocate? Was there any particular moments that just kind of...
It was childhood moments, really. So I've always been a planner. I had a planner with me from first grade. I would plan out assignments. I would plan out everything. I would make sure. And if plans changed, I just changed my plans, right? That's fine by me as long as things are written down. And then when these things came out, these cell phones came out, then I could put everything in the calendar. But I'm really good at following my timetable, at getting things done. I was a National Honor Society varsity cheerleader, but nobody liked me because I was alternative. You see, I was a raver as well. And I know you're laughing, but I like to have my hand in different pockets.
Yeah.
So I graduated with double honors, but I used to eat lunch by myself in the library because I didn't have a lot of friends, because I was so diverse and a lot of my friends were outside of school. But growing up, I was always determined. So despite any negativity, despite any adversity that I had experienced, I would always keep going. So very early on, I was 7 years old and I was taken away from my mom and dad, my brother and I.
Wow.
And we were moved to my grandparents' house, where I actually don't remember anything but one day. And we were there for about 4 or 5 months. And then I was reunited back with my family. So I think subconsciously, I thought to myself, well, I was a bad girl. I must have done something. So I need to make sure not to do that any longer. Well, that kind of propelled me to always excel, good and bad, right? This is negative and positive coping mechanisms in one that I'm talking about here. But that kind of helped me to be business minded and getting the coaching that I needed. I did Amway early on as well. I used to sit at the bottom of the stage and look at these speakers. And this was 2009. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I want to be up there one day. And there's 1,000 people in the auditorium in Spokane, Washington. And I turn around and look at the crowd and John Maxwell's on stage. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I want to do this. I didn't connect those dots until later on, until God gifted me with a platform to be able to do so.
I love it. Amazing. Storytelling, as we've talked about through speaking, through sharing our stories in books, it is an incredibly powerful tool for empowerment. How do survivor stories contribute to breaking the silence around domestic abuse and inspiring others to seek help?
So when you feel like you're not alone, then you feel like you can do something. We started a collaboration book in 2023 called Breaking the Silence, Voices of Survivors. And we had a lot of survivors from domestic violence, but all kinds of trauma, from suicide, homicide, trafficking, DV, sexual abuse, drug addiction, mental health conditions, disease. So we have a lot of these survivors telling their stories. And what we're realizing is that the more people that speak up, the more people that want to read about those stories, and the more people that want to also speak their own truth and their own stories. So we are doing this yearly anthology called Breaking the Silence: Voices of Survivors. Volume 1 was published in January of 2024. We were #1 bestseller on Amazon.
Congratulations.
But it's pretty awesome because now we're being interviewed on Fox 13 early in March. We were accepted into the Oxford Exchange to have our book launch party. We're going to be publishing volume 2 of this. We already have a full slot. We've got 21 authors in volume 2, and we are publishing that in October of 2024. And the more and more we get this out, the more and more people want to be involved and tell their stories and feel like it's okay to do so. And this is why we have the 4 summits. Learn how to tell your story. Come and hear other people telling their stories, because then it gives you hope and it inspires you to be able to do the same thing. Whether it's our programs or services or summits or books, or whether it is Tigo or Brad or you name it, just get yourself out there and surround yourself with people who are actually authentically expressing themselves and learn from those individuals. And we start to really make some huge shifts.
Absolutely. It's a permission slip. When one person stands up and shares, that's a permission slip for others to do the same and feel comfortable and to know that, hey, wait a minute. Michelle shared her story. I went through something similar. I went through something along these lines. It's okay for me too, because she's created that safe space for us to do that.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah, exactly.
Breaking the cycle of abuse is a very complex process, obviously. How does your organization work to break the cycle, and not just for survivors, but also in terms of prevention and education?
So it's a lot of education, especially in Sierra Leone, for example. I remember going there and knowing I wanted to be in Africa. So I just started experimenting with what could work. And we're like, let's do an event, right? Let's invite all the women in the community to this event hall and feed them, right? That's a big thing. You feed them, they'll come. And we provided food and drinks. And some of the women were like, why aren't the men here? And I was like, oh, let's invite the men. So we invited the men. And man, this first meeting, it was yelling back and forth for 2 hours between these men and these women. Wow. But then things started to settle down, and I was able to speak. We were all able to express ourselves. And it was through little bits of education like that the men were like, oh, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do that. And women too, the women were like, oh yeah, I guess I do treat my husband poorly. Because women do it as well, and it then can cause or perpetuate the cycle of domestic violence. So it began to shift, and the mindsets began to shift, and understanding that men and women are equal in our own different ways, but equality is important, and understanding that we all need to have morals and values and be respected. I think that's the number one thing. So it's through that education. And then here in the United States, we're working on collaboration. That's something it's been tough. We're working on pulling organizations together to try to figure out how to collaborate even more. Funding is lack. I'm not going to lie. It's very difficult for us to build a school with a housing component in Sierra Leone. That's about $150,000. For us to build a day center with wraparound services in Tampa, it's over $2 million. So there is a huge jump right there. Yeah. And funding is necessary. So whether it's Unsilenced Voices or whether it's another organization, I encourage you to use your treasure, your pocketbook, and give back. It's always time, talent, or treasure. So volunteer, do your time, give your treasure, or be able to help and educate.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Michelle. Looking ahead, what is your long-term vision for your nonprofit, and how do you envision the landscape of domestic abuse advocacy evolving in the years to come?
Yeah, well, I think that we're really going to be able to utilize AI and Web3 technology. So we want to build in the metaverse and be able to have an anonymous facility. Well, it would be called Unsilenced Voices, but the people would come with anonymity and be able to get the services that they need with real time now. If they're in an abusive relationship in Texas and they need help now, we can connect them immediately. That's what I foresee using technology. Well, as far as where I see Unsilenced Voices, we've pulled back a little bit right now. So it is currently 2024. That's so crazy to me. But we've pulled back a little in Rwanda and Ghana and the US, and we're focusing on our growth in Sierra Leone. So once we are able to really stabilize this growth and have it sustain itself through the cassava processing plant that we have, and financial literacy and economic stability, and our girls teaching other girls, then we can duplicate those efforts and move to different countries. So I have a huge dream. I'd love to impact millions, if not billions worldwide in multiple countries. We're talking 10, 20, 30 different countries worldwide. My biggest dream is to be able to get into the Middle East and start to shift some of that mentality, start to shift that women need to be treated just as important as a man. And their shifts are slow. They're about 100 years, they say, behind the US. Now, I'm not saying the US is perfect by any means.
No.
There's a lot of things that we do wrong here in the United States and other first world countries, but really to give the Middle East a new perspective of looking at women as not property, but as people in their community that they need to support and cherish. So that is my biggest dream, is to get there and really start to shift the dialogue around abuse towards women, sexual violence, and morals. So those are just a couple of things.
Just a couple little dreams. I have no doubt you will get there. None whatsoever. You're ambitious and you're doing the work. It'll happen.
Yeah.
It will, for sure.
Yeah,
I believe
it will. It will.
Absolutely.
As long as God keeps me on this planet, I'm going to keep going.
So being an advocate and doing the work you do, I mean, it's very emotionally taxing. So I would love to know, how do you prioritize self-care? And what advice do you have for other advocates to avoid burning out and compassion fatigue and all of these things?
Yeah, I mean, those things are real. I think it's important to treat yourself lovingly. At first, this was hard for me. So at first, when I started doing this, I was getting burnt out. And I'm not going to lie, hearing these stories over and just, I mean, it's so horrific if you just look at that aspect. So now I go out into the wilderness and I love to scuba dive. That's my favorite thing to do, is go into the water and scuba dive and see the beautifulness of God, see the animals and the environment, go on hikes and really take care of yourself. But I also love to have fun too. So right now I'm sitting at the MGM in Las Vegas. I'm on a mini vacation doing a podcast before my evening starts. And I am going to see my favorite band, Dave Matthews Band. And you know what? I am seeing Dave Matthews Band 14 times in 2024. Right? But that counts as 2 and 3 day concerts, right? So I think it's important to find something that you really love to do and go and do that with the friends that you love to do them with. Like I said, I like wine a little too much sometimes. I like to wine taste and go to vineyards and scuba diving. I volunteer at the zoo in the Tampa area, and I volunteer twice a month, and I scuba dive with the manatees. I go down and I vacuum up manatee poop. But you know what? I'm under the water. These manatees rub up next to you and they're just like loving. And that brings me back to, okay, so this is what we're fighting for. And then you see our girls. This is the most wonderful thing. You see our girls and then they've learned so much. And then now they're advocates in their community. They're going out and they're teaching and they're talking. Salia Matu, I remember she was one of the very first girls that came to our vocational training center, the first one we partnered with in Sierra Leone. And she came with her friend Matilda, who unfortunately we lost Matilda to AIDS. And we now call this program Matilda's program. But Salia Matu kept going. And she was stern. She was in trafficking. She was abused. She had children. And we're talking a late teen, early 20s. It's crazy. But now she is leading the sex workers meetings and she's walking out in the community and she's stern and she's taking her life and the lives of others with her. And it's beautiful to see.
That is incredible. What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become successful, Michelle?
Oh, that's funny that you asked that, because we kind of already talked about that. My Rolodex, my relationship capital, right? And I hate to say it like that, but now that I really understood it, good people in society, I want to get to know. And I do a good job of following up and staying in communication for the most part. There, of course, I falter here or there, but I think that the relationships that we have, like we talked about earlier, will help propel us. And then I don't give up easily. I mean, I don't really ever give up. I'm loyal to a fault sometimes. I mean, I still use the same printer out of Los Angeles that I've used since I was a teenager with my headshot. So we're talking like 20 years almost. And I literally send to them to send to me in Florida, 3,000 miles apart. But I think that loyalty really stands for something. And I am determined to not give up. So
Beautiful.
there you go.
How do you define success? What does that word mean to you?
Success is different for everybody. It doesn't necessarily need to be financial success. It doesn't have to be success that you own a big mansion in Beverly Hills or something like that. I think that you need to define what it is that you want in your life and then deem that successful. So for me, all I want is to be able to travel the world and travel business and first class. So
of course.
I get to travel a little business, but not enough first class. So I'm still growing. We're all still growing. I want a nice house, but a modest house. Doesn't need to be 18 bedrooms. I'd love a home on the beach, probably in Florida. I loved California until the pandemic. So we'll see what happens with all of that. But looking at the ocean is my niche, and being able to sit there in the mornings and have a cup of coffee or tea, or at night, my glass of wine, just looking out and looking at the beautiful waves. I mean, if it's Florida, there's not a lot of waves, but you can hear some of the waves. Really kind of enjoying life. And travel is something that's important, going to see different continents and countries and cultures. And then my philanthropy, give back. That is success to me. Being able to do our part while we're here on earth, because we are only here for a very minute period of time.
What does the word empowerment mean to you?
So many questions. I love this. Empowerment, though. To empower means to use your voice to encourage. So empowering others to make a shift, empowering others to speak up, empowering others to think higher of themselves, to get out of the imposter syndrome, to encourage, right? To really uplift somebody. That's what empowerment means.
If you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
I used to think Oprah for a long period of time because that's the normal response. And Oprah's wonderful. I really do Oprah. But I guess this is also kind of stigma. Mel Robbins. To me, I follow her on social media primarily because she's an amazing coach and mentor, right? And she has the business that I desire. So I follow her. I see what she's doing. But she's very authentic. She doesn't do a lot of makeup. She's goofy and she's her. And she is able to be transparent and coach. And she has this great podcast where she talks real stories. And having a conversation with Mel Robbins would be really beneficial. And I think that along with a handful of queens and princesses in the Middle East to help get me over there, but I think that would be my first get-go.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Don't worry about what other people think so much.
And lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, your tribe, your people, your corner of the world, what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What words of wisdom would you impart?
I end every podcast the same way. So I'm just going to use those same words. Yeah. And I think I actually said it at Teresa Goss's event. So there's a movie. The movie is called Finding Nemo. Dory in Finding Nemo swims around and she is lost and she just sings to herself. And the one thing she sings is just keep swimming. Now, the reason why that sticks so well is because oftentimes we want to give up. Oftentimes we want to take our own lives. Oftentimes we want to do things that are not good for us. And we are our own worst critic most of the time. And I want to encourage you to just keep going. Just keep swimming, just like Dory did. So
Beautiful.
That would be my last 30 seconds.
Love it. Michelle, thank you so very much for taking and making the time to be here with me today. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I've learned a ton. You are such an incredible inspiration. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you.
Brad, thank you. And for those listening, if you are interested in connecting with me, please go to michellejewsbury.com. Last name is spelled Jewsbury, michellejewsbury.com. Brad, thank you so much. This has been great.
My pleasure, my honor. We'll put all the links to all your stuff, your organization, everything in the show notes. So people will be able to find you. Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, host of your Empowerography podcast. Today, my guest has been Michelle Jewsbury. She is the founder of Unsilenced Voices, a coach, a speaker, and a powerhouse advocate for those who have experienced pain and trauma. Thank you so much, Michelle. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Bye, guys.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at viseuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.